So I wrote her a letter and said, I would like to be you when I grow up. Could I meet you? And her congressional office scheduled an appointment, and I got to meet her. And then I worked for her, and basically she became my mentor, and I got to follow her around for several years, which is pretty great. I think one thing is I learned is that you can ask people to mentor you, and that's terrifying for a young person, but once you are older and you are a mentor, you realize it's unbelievably flattering to mentor people, and that actually it's nice to be asked. So that's one thing I tell young women. I think looking for that, seeking that out is something that is very important, and it makes a huge difference in people's careers if they have mentors available to them or not. And part of that is whether we teach young women to ask to be mentored. Part of that is whether there are people willing to do so. And that can be awkward because I think for some men within law firms, they worry if they're mentoring a young woman if it's going to be misunderstood. For women, that they have the burden because there are so many fewer of them at the top of being asked to be mentored by all the young women, and so that becomes an issue. It's an issue because there are few women on law school faculties, for example, and so all of the female students, and there have, will come to us and want career advice and all of that, and we spend hours and hours pulling students out the door, which becomes its own obligation. I think there are ways to become involved in all of these community activities, to join a board, to be the young person in the room, and to watch and learn, and to ask people to help you. And that's essentially what I've done my whole life, and it's been a huge help. There are a few of you in this room who mentored me, and I'm very grateful for that. So I think that seeking that out through community activities, through bar associations, but most of it happens in the workplace, because frankly that's where you really need the most hands-on advice. And just a pitch for doing it, I'm now teaching because I love it so much, and being able to take somebody just starting out and to teach them both the practice, the skills, the law, also just professionalism, how to act like a grown-up in ways that they're worried and scared about doing, that the world perceives them as grown-ups and they need to not think that they're invisible all the time. And ethics and how one really is a good lawyer and a good person in the community.
Okay, Kim, I think you have a follow-up to that, but also as you're doing your follow-up, I'd like you to address, well, the fact that we're all lawyers and it's still a business, and rainmaking, and how does that fit in with community involvement, professional activities, etc.?
Okay, great. Thank you, Sharonda. I did want to follow up on Tanya's point. I think it was very well taken. Someone made a comment at the Diversity Conclave that the State Bar put on, Kelly, on March 13th, if I'm not mistaken, African-American female deputy general counsel at Halliburton, which I was like, ooh, in-house at Halliburton, that's interesting. Strong, smart, sharp. And she said, when she talked about mentorship, she said she had what she called her own personal board of directors. That's how she referred to her quote-unquote mentors. Her personal board of directors. These are people that she goes to when she has an issue about anything remotely relevant to her career. And I thought her point was so well taken, because sometimes we think that in order to mentor someone or to have someone mentor us, they need to look like us. So if we're female, we think we need to have all female mentors. If we're minority, African American, whatever the case may be, we think we need to have all minority mentors. You need to have anybody who's ready, willing, and able to mentor you or be on your board of directors do so. No matter what race that person is, what gender that person is, what age that person is. I'm looking around the room, and there are so many people in this room, many of whom are actually younger than I am, who have mentored me in varying ways and in varying contexts. Judge Geruso and I think Judge Gil Jefferson stepped out of the room when I sat pro tem. Oh, there she is. When I sat pro tem at CDC, I sat next to Judge Geruso, and I can't tell you the number of times I would call my minute clerk, "Go get Judge Geruso now, I'm about to mess something up." So, I mean, bottom line is, and everybody did it. Everybody on that court was nice and wonderful and gave me wonderful advice. When I worked at McGlinchey, I'm looking at Donna Klein, I'm looking at Vicki McHenry in the back, who's general counsel at Bell South. everybody I've had the opportunity to work with has generally played some positive role in my career. So I'm saying this very long drawn out story to say, don't just limit yourself to mentors or board of directors who look just like you, because bluntly, I do think that is a limitation. Look for people who have something relevant to bring to the table, regardless of, you know, what their gender, age, or racial orientation happens to be. And then your second question after I babbled on, Sharonda, was what?
Rainmaking. Women have probably a unique or a different way of rainmaking, and how do you do that, and how do you benefit from community involvement and bar involvement in terms of client development, rainmaking, etc.?
I think that's a great point. I think women probably do or have served as rainmakers in a different context than men do. I think we are all, God bless, I think we're all familiar with the old stereotype of, you know, men going playing golf together or going to some sporting event together, etc. And I think to a large degree we are obviously limited in doing that. While many of us play golf, we may have some hesitation in inviting, you know, a male client, hey, let's go hit the links, you know, on Saturday morning, whatever the case may be. The same with, hey, you know, come with me to the Hornets game. You may have some concern with how that might be perceived, etc. So I think the way we rainmake is probably different in some shape, form, or fashion. I think a lot of it is based upon relationships. As in-house counsel, as general counsel, as deputy general counsel have become more diverse from a corporate standpoint, they have sought diversity from the law firms whom they retain to do their work. So if you're dealing with a female who's a litigation director of a particular corporation, not saying that she's just going to hire female attorneys to do her work, but she's going to probably be very open to that because in many cases she's come from a law firm to do it. Many of the people that you went to law school with have now gone in-house either from the government side or from a corporate standpoint. Those are all relationship building, and I think we've all, you know, used those relationships hopefully in order to get business. Bluntly, I think one of the best ways to get business is to be fantastic in what it is you do. To a large degree, your reputation is going to precede you when people are looking for someone to represent them in a discrete field. You know, if you have a healthcare issue, Donna Klein's going to be one of your top 3 people that you're going to call. Now, whether she ultimately gets the work, who knows, but she's definitely going to be in the top 3 people to call. If you have a First Amendment issue, Mary Ellen Roy is going to be in your top 3 people to call. If you have a litigation issue in any context, particularly in state and federal court locally, Patricia Krebs is going to be one of the top 3 people to call, and the list goes on and on and on. So I think being extremely competent and building a great reputation in your chosen field helps a lot from a rainmaking standpoint. Having said all of that, though, and having looked at all of the accomplished women in this room and who practice law in the city of New Orleans, my personal opinion still is that women probably still have more barriers with building a large corporate client base than men do. There are obviously exceptions to that rule. I'm looking at a number of exceptions around this room, but I still do think that there is still some limitations, some barriers, again, not insurmountable barriers, but some limitations, some barriers as it relates to women building a corporate client base, and particularly in the litigation context, as Patricia referred to. If you go into CDC on any given day, and Judge Jeruso, correct me if I'm wrong, but many times on the substantive motions that you have before you, it's going to be a male partner arguing that motion. There may be a female associate or partner with them, handing them papers and saying, yeah, make sure you say this. But many, not all the time, but many times it's going to still be the male partner arguing that motion, and certainly by the time you get to a trial situation, it's going to be many times the male partner making the opening, doing the closing, you know, taking the substantive witnesses, and they may let the female associate or partner take some half an hour or 10-minute witness. So again, while there are phenomenal litigators in the city of New Orleans, female litigators in the city of New Orleans, I still think that there are some limitations and barriers, but one of the best ways to overcome that is to know your subject area, know it well, make it clear to those around you